Hello everyone, this is Marianne from Revealing Light Tarot. In Australia it's Easter Sunday here and it's a very quiet, relaxing morning here. So I have read the Mueller report over the weekend. I'm surprised on a number of fronts. I'm shocked on many others, and I'm not surprised on a lot of other points. The first part of the report, I'll let you read that and I'll let you digest it. But for me, my impressions of the first part of that report is that it's damning in relation to conspiracy. It's damning in the number of contacts that the Trump and the Trump campaign had with Russians. It struck me how opportunistic they were, how eager and keen they were for those contacts. Not once did they stop and think, is there anything wrong with what we are doing? They had one thing in mind, and that was to defeat Hillary Clinton in the dirtiest campaign possible, and anyone who was going to lend a hand was a friend to them. Now, as we know, Mueller stopped short of being able to charge or prove beyond a reasonable doubt re-conspiracy, in part because some of the evidence was deleted, was basically trashed, binned, gotten rid of before Mueller even got on the scene. Now, we know also that there are those 14 handoffs, 2 of which we already know about, 12 of which we don't. And so, you know, there's more to come. And I want to move through that this morning in some way around those other investigations. Now, the second part of the report on obstruction is very clear-cut, multiple incidences, mostly in the public domain, I might add, of Trump obstructing justice. Now, the really interesting point to come out of there is some of the corroborating evidence is from Don McGahn, who was Trump's White House legal counsel, whom he asked to fire Mueller. You know, so much evidence of obstruction there. Now, Mueller has put a caveat at the end of that obstruction part of the report that says that while he followed the DOJ guidelines around not indicting a sitting president, nothing would preclude prosecution from going forward once Trump steps down from office. So he could well be tried, unless he makes a deal, for obstruction of justice once he steps down from office. So, I'm still, I guess, going back and referring to the report. I need to look at the appendices and the footnotes. I've really just consumed the main bulk of the words there, of the body of the report. Now, people have been asking me to read on whether Mueller was bribed or paid off in any way. Another psychic made that prediction. I don't read on other psychics' predictions. I would say you should take that back to them and ask for more information on that. Now, let's just start. No, my impressions are that, without pulling any tarot cards, no, Mueller wasn't bribed that I can pinpoint at this point in time. What I do believe, and this is where I want to start our reading today, that I do, and I've said on a couple of occasions, I feel that Mueller was told or made to finish up earlier than what he wanted to. I feel that there could well have been further work, or there's something around Don Jr. and that Trump Tower meeting that sort of says to me that Mueller may have backed off in some way. So, did he not want to antagonise Donald Trump? Who knows what the thinking was? But let's see if we can find out a bit of that today. What I think, he may have been Mueller may have been defending himself around that time, and in order for the investigation to proceed, he may have taken a less damning route re Donald Trump Jr., but we'll get to that. So let's just start with the first question. Was Mueller finished? Was he finished? What did Barr, when Barr came on board, really begin to finish Mueller up early? Was his investigation impeded in any way? Was he asked to finish up early? Was he made, not asked, was he made finish up early? Finish up early. I feel that Barr, as the Attorney General, had some sway over the conduct of the how long that investigation was going to pan out. Because I'm just getting really the image of Barr as a king there, which is telling me that he had some authority over this. Was Mueller asked to finish up early? All right, let's see what we can see. We've got some anxiety and worry here for Mueller as the signifier card. Some anxiety and worry. Now, when you're confronting, when you're really in those situations that are very perilous, on the battlefront, for example, you have to make decisions to ensure things go forward. You have to make compromises. Was he asked to make a compromise? Now, this is the Nine of Cups here. This is the wish card. This sometimes comes forward as Trump prior to getting into office. It's the smug merchant, but it's also the wish card as well. It's also a yes card. It's miracles happening. So, there's something around something changed when Barr came on board. There is something that we don't know here. This is the High Priestess, something that's causing Mueller worry and anxiety there, and the High Priestess is indicating that there is some information still to come out. There is some information currently being withheld. What's in the past here is the balance card, which came forward for Barr, if you remember, in those readings that I did. He was brought in to bring balance into the situation, and this could have meant negotiation. So I'm feeling there was some negotiation with Mueller on his investigation. Now we've got the Three of Pentacles, which is repair, teamwork, fixing things. Okay, so was he finished up in order to finished sooner than what he wanted to allow Barr to fix things? And we've got the Seven of Swords in the immediate future here, which is really trying to get away with something. This is the thief that comes in the middle of the night, takes the ammunition, scales down the cliff, leaves the fortress unguarded. There appears to me that Barr, perhaps there's some kind of attempt here to negotiate and fix things and balance things for the president, which caused Mueller a lot of anxiety, and there is something here that we are still not seeing. Now we've got the Knight of Swords here coming forward as really. This is a situation at the moment. If we think about what's happening with the Mueller report, it's being published across multiple platforms, from Amazon through to Washington Post, through to etc., etc. It is almost like a novel, and really, it's going to take that path. It's going to become a bestseller, because this is something that Donald Trump cannot hold back. So that Mueller report at the moment is just, as I said the other night, is just going to, as the information flows out, is just going to gain and gain in momentum. And most right-thinking people will ask themselves, this is a president that obstructed justice on multiple occasions, that possibly when he steps down could be indicted, charged, face justice. The conspiracy there, we won't even talk about collusion anymore. The conspiracy there, the evidence, while didn't lead to an indictment or a charge or a finding, is quite damning as we see this opportunistic, eager, almost excitable, embracing of Russia's help to hack the democratic server, to engineer things, to divide America, etc., etc. Without a doubt, Russia has interfered in the 2016 election. That's very, very clear. We know what Manafort did, provide the Russians with polling data. We know that Kushner was running back and forward to the Russian think tank in America. I just forget the name of it. It's in the report anyway. And actually handed a reconciliation plan to the incoming Secretary of State, which laid out a new pathway for American and Russian relations. It's all in the report. It is quite damning. Now, the Ten of Pentacles often comes forward as the Trump organisation and the Trump business. Another huge part of that report is, not huge, but part of that report talks about the Trump Tower Moscow project, and that there were negotiations or back and forth, if they weren't formal, perhaps not formal negotiations, but plans to build the Trump Tower in Moscow were continuing until well into 2016. So there's so much there. Now, what is redacted to me also, I was surprised. There are sufficient, there are redactions there. Some are around Roger Stone and WikiLeaks, but others are around these ongoing investigations, including the Trump Tower project in Moscow. It's very interesting what is redacted. So the hopes and fears, we've got here things turning, the fear that things will turn against the president. I do feel that he's quite fearful at the moment, and I'll probably do 2 readings this morning, so this isn't too long. Now, what the outcome here is, we've got the devil here. Now, the devil, of course, can be greed and avarice, but it's also being chained to outcomes. I do feel that as the weeks go by, it's going to become clearer and clearer who Trump was chained to. Now, we talked about whether Mueller finished earlier. I would think that this is a card that would say that he possibly did, because this is being chained to a particular outcome. This is somebody who, in the form of Trump and Barr, are obsessing about the Mueller report. And this is talking about Barr's relationship with Trump, clarified by the 2 of Pentacles, which is talking about manipulation and decisions, trying to juggle things. And we've got the Queen of Wands here. We've got Congress, or this is, coming up from my card for the House and for Congress. I do feel that Trump, in some ways, twice now, the Congress has gone against him, and he's had to use his veto on the wall and on the war in Yemen. And I do feel that Trump wanted the Mueller investigation finished sooner rather than later. Now, the Queen of Cups is what we are not able to see. That is what's hidden on the bottom of the pack from our view. Now, this isn't a judge. This is simply symbolic of that there is more to be revealed. This Queen here can withdraw her support. She has a reverse. Can be quite sinister, and she tries to hide things. And this has been coming up in my readings around the Mueller report for quite some time. I do feel that there was an element here that, whether Mueller was 90% of the way through and wanted to continue on till September, to when that grand jury finishes hearing their evidence. They've been extended, I think, until the latter part of this year. Stone's trial, whether he was in the middle of further investigations and had to hand those off. The Mueller report, the Mueller probe, the Mueller investigation was becoming too big a nail in Trump's coffin, and he brought his Attorney General in here, who was savvy enough to understand that the president was vulnerable on obstruction, and wrote that memo and got the job to come in and do what he's done. And we won't read on that again because we can see that he did actually try and cover up. Now, I will say, in all fairness to Barr, more of that report was available than what I thought it would be. Yes, there was some heavy redactions. There was a page redacted, for example, but I was surprised at how much was readily available, and I do have to be fair to Barr. It wasn't as redacted as what it could have been. Now, I want to look. I feel very strongly. I've been listening to some legal opinions around Trump Jr. that he wasn't indicted because he didn't really know what he was doing was legally wrong. And I've heard legal scholars actually say that was a mistake to do it that way, because what that does is say to other campaigns in the future that it's okay to take foreign information, as long as you aren't willfully doing that, or knowing that is that's breaking the law, and that could set a dangerous precedence. So I feel that we were getting very close to an indictment with Trump Jr., and I feel that when Barr came in, that feeling of urgency that I had around Trump Jr. disappeared. So I want to know, did Mueller back off the president's son because the president may have just taken sweeping authority and shut him down, or plunged, the country into crisis? What was there a deal done? Are there other investigations? My feeling is there are other investigations. Trump Jr. and Ivanka and Kushner are not out of the woods, because I feel that they're caught up in other matters, and I will read on that in part 2 of this reading, because we actually have evidence that we know that there is a legal jeopardy there for them. Well, okay, so let's see. Did Mueller back off Trump Jr.? For whatever reason, did Mueller find a less precarious path for that Trump Tower meeting for Trump Jr.? Did he back off Trump Jr.? All right, so I've got 5 of Cups here, which is loss. I'll just bring the laptop down. That's the reaction to loss. So this is very indicative to me that Trump's reaction to Trump Jr. being indicted, he would have gone off, completely off. Okay, now we've got that loss is being challenged by will complete the 10 of Swords, which is endings, complete and painful endings. I do feel that Mueller chose to follow a less precarious path on Trump Jr. for a particular reason that might have preserved the investigation. We've got the three of Cups here. I do believe this is Trump's children. Here is the foundation of the reading. Now, in the past, we've got new emotional starts here. I do feel that here we go. The 2 of Swords here, multiple forces weighing on Mueller's shoulders. He had to compromise. Yeah, and we've got the Two of Pentacles here in relation to some sort of juggling, potentially could have been. So he was juggling and he had a decision to make. The Six of Wands, which is the situation now, there is some kind of victory here. Now I'm going to just pause here for a moment because this is quite interesting. Victory for whom? Victory for Donald Trump that his children weren't caught up in indictments and charges, or victory for Mueller that Mueller will, in some other way, in some other investigation, take this further. I do feel that there's a juggling aspect here. As I keep saying with this card as we read, in history, historically, this card, and perhaps not with this in this particular deck. This is classic tarot deck of Lo Scarabeo. But in other decks, this card depicts someone who has to light the lighthouse to bring the ships to shore and has to make a decision. Which ship are they going to bring into shore and which are they not? Or are they going to bring anyone into shore and let the ships crash onto the rocks? So that's why there is an element of manipulation and juggling to this particular card, and it's right connecting with the compromise and the decision. So I'm feeling that while this may have been a short-lived victory for Trump Jr., I don't feel that he's out of the woods yet. Now, we've got the environment around is the Six of Swords. This is moving on and relocation. Victory and moving on would suggest that there is a victory, some sort of victory here for Trump Jr., but we haven't got to the outcome card yet. The hopes and fears was the president, the emperor. I do believe that Trump inserted himself in this way when it came to his children. They were my intuitive feelings at the time, and I do believe that they could be correct. Now, the outcome card is Mueller himself. The truth. The truth will win out at the end of the day. So while Trump Jr. may be celebrating, yes, there's a lot more to come in this Queen of Cups here. It's, as I said, inverted is withdrawing one's support. What else is in those investigations? Ooh, okay. Seven of Swords here. That's sitting over the Emperor card. Yep. What is hidden from our view? Things coming forward strongly and quickly in the Chariot. So I do feel that that Trump's children are not out of the woods yet in relation to those other investigations. I do feel that the two things, impressions, key intuitions I had when I started this reading was that Mueller may have finished too early as a result of Barr taking over at the beginning of this year. And I feel the president loomed large when it came to his children. I was surprised that no indictment came down for Trump Jr. and Kushner over that Trump Tower meeting. Now, through the Mueller report, we can see his decisions, his prosecutorial decisions, and why he did what he did. And the reason which legal scholars are querying is that Trump Jr. was basically didn't know that what he was doing was wrong. Now, the way that would have been proven is Trump Jr. would have gone before the grand jury, and that grand jury would have established whether or not he knowingly knew what that meeting with the Russians for dirt, which had been gotten via hacking of Democrats' computers, etc., and in a backdrop of the Russians interfering in the 2016 election, whether he actually knew that was wrong. And this legal scholar was actually asking why Mueller didn't bring Trump Jr. before the grand jury so that the grand jury could determine that. So I feel that there are a couple of areas around the Mueller report which are still bothering me, and that is that I feel intuitively Mueller may have finished too early or earlier than what he did, And secondly, there is something around Trump's children in there. Now, I'm going to close this down and move to those other investigations because now, before I do, I should say the Mueller report is damning. It will grow. It will eventually lead to the Democrats having to move toward impeachment. I don't feel, according to my readings, that they will finish that impeachment process. I feel that Trump will resign beforehand. That's the way I'm seeing it at this point in time. But it's the Mueller report. We should not be under any illusion how difficult a job this was for Robert Mueller. Was he compromised in any way, in any sinister way? No. But I feel that the environment that he was working within was so volatile. When Barr took over, I feel that things changed. And we know what Barr is capable of. So put yourself in Mueller's seat. So I feel there's a key doubt there for me around whether or not he had fully completed everything that he wanted to do. And the second doubt I have there is around Donald Trump Jr. and indeed Trump's children and son-in-law Jared Kushner. But that doesn't take away from the enormity of what the Mueller report brings forth, which will just grow and grow. All right, now I'm going to shut that down and we're going to go to the future here, to these other investigations. I want to know, is there going to be, will Trump face justice once he finishes, once he leaves the presidency? But I really want to know about Trump's children and how they're going to be caught up in these other investigations. And I'll tell you why I want to ask that. Why I want to ask that question, and particularly is Ivanka in legal jeopardy? So I'm going to close this down and we'll continue with part 2 of this reading.